At the end of this month, July 30th, 2 more DLCs released for console players, and seeing how these two are 2 of my personal favorite DLCs, I wanted to make a video going over both of them to tell you guys what I think about them. So without any more rambling on, let's review the Africa and Grasslands packs. So let's start off with the Africa pack. So quickly going over the contents of what you actually get in the pack, you get 5 animals, all from, well, Africa. You get the southern white rhino, the meerkat, the fennec fox, African penguin, and the sacred scarab beetle for the exhibit box. Alongside the animals, you get over 150 new scenery pieces, all themed around African architecture. Finally, you also get access to a new time scenario set in a picturesque oasis in, you guessed it, Africa. Now, I don't play the scenarios that often, so I won't be taking those into account when reviewing the packs. I'll focus on the animals and scenery mostly, as that's what usually drives people to get the packs. So, with the animals, there are some super useful additions in this roster, at least to me. I know that Africa is probably the continent that has the most animals in the base game roster, but these 5 additions are for the most part animals that you would see in most real zoo collections. The white rhino, African penguin, and the meerkat are all very common in real zoos and the ones I use a lot in game. Fennec fox is probably the one I would use the least. It was never one I really wanted in the game, and to be honest, I feel like it was one where people wanted it because it was cute, but then later on when we got more foxes like the Arctic and red foxes, people kind of forgot about this one because the other 2 are more useful. With the 3 I mentioned earlier though, the rhino, penguin, and meerkat, it also allows for some new creativity and ways to build enclosures. For example, the only penguin currently in the game, if you have the aquatic pack in the console version, is the king penguin, which needs a colder climate enclosure. So having the African penguin can allow you to make a more tropical or hotter climate aquatic enclosure, or semi-aquatic enclosure if you will. The rhino and also the meerkat, I believe, also have an interspecies enrichment with a few other African species like the aardvarks, or there's a bunch of hoofstock options for the rhino, so that also helps their usability. So you can mix those kind of and make mixed enclosures for like big, large savanna enclosures, very useful. Or you could even just do solo enclosures just for rhino or just for a meerkat. Overall, I'm a big fan of the animals in this pack. Most of them are icons in real zoo collections that are useful to me, and I think that if you are someone who is currently or planning on building an African section in your zoos, then these few animals will definitely make great additions to your parks. Now, let's talk pieces. In this pack, you get over 150 construction pieces, all themed around African architecture, and these pieces range from usefulness. If you're someone who wants to build an African safari or African style zoo, this pack probably has just what you're looking for. But if you're like me, who enjoys building classic and like a bit of everything style type zoo, then things get a bit more complicated and tricky. The pack's pieces range from statues, signs, ceramic tiles, wood beams, wood paneling, large columns, new fences, and so much more. Some of the sets included in this pack are a bit more themed than others. For example, the column and the fence sets have a very specific theme to them. With the fences, they have a very new gold and shiny type style to them, and with the columns, they have very bright patterns, which even though they are flexicolor, you can still see the grooves in the piece, which makes you question if it's really that useful compared to other column sets we have in the game already. A similar situation also appears with the signs and statues. They're very vibrant and kind of different from the other signs in the game, and I know that recently we have been getting signs that are of a consistent style, so this kind of goes against that, unfortunately, but they could still be useful depending on what your intentions are of what you're building. However, moving on from my critiques on those sets, there are some really good sets in this pack, and sometimes it only takes a few pieces to convince someone to buy a pack. The sets I find really useful in this pack are definitely, for one, the plaster brick set. These pieces, obviously flexicolor, are useful to me when doing things like trim or just small detailing in buildings. Another set that is really useful is the log set, a small set with only a few pieces to it, but these log pieces are extremely useful for building fences, walls, or just adding them around habitats to make them look more natural. Finally, the last set I use from time to time is the tile set. These smaller square tiles can be useful for staff areas or making indoor guest areas. Once again, they're also flexicolor. A lot of the pieces in this pack are flexicolor, thankfully, so if you don't want the vibrant colors that the pieces have, then you can flexicolor them and make them just more toned down neutral colors. Overall, the pack is a good mix when it comes to construction pieces. I find that most packs usually have a mixture of realistic and normal pieces and more heavily themed pieces that go around the main theme of the pack. And this pack is no different. I think that some of the pieces we talked about, the wood, the logs and the tiles are more generic, so you can use those in a realistic setting, while there's some other pieces in the pack that are more themed towards Africa and don't have a lot of purpose outside of their main focus, if that makes sense. So now we're on to the last thing of the pack, foliage. So when I first thought about doing this video and thinking about how good the foliage is for the Africa pack, I forgot about how most of the good foliage isn't actually in the pack. The drain grass was probably the most popular plant after this pack got announced, and while I thought it came in the pack, it was actually part of the free update, meaning that everybody got it whether you had the pack or not. The pack actually only came with 4 foliage pieces, each with 3 variants, and all of them were trees. Out of the 4 we did get, I think the only one I use regularly is the Doom Palm, because it looks really good, and it fits in with the rest of the palms we have either from the base game or other packs. The other 3 trees in this pack, well, they would probably be good when building an African themed zoo, but for me personally, I don't use them that often in my African enclosures even. Overall, I wouldn't say the foliage is anything outstanding compared to the construction pieces, which are way more useful. In conclusion for this pack, it's a great pack. Maybe if you're someone who wants to build a zoo with animals from across the world, don't get this pack right away because the base game already has lots of African animals. But I will say that this selection of animals will definitely enhance your African sections, and the scenery in this pack is also pretty useful and might help you to build better enclosures or just give you more options when building your enclosures. And that's really all I have to say on the Africa pack, and right now we're going to switch over to the Grasslands pack. This is my favorite pack to date, honestly. This pack comes with 8 animals: the 9-banded armadillo, maned wolf, striped hyena, emu, red-necked wallaby, caracal, blue wildebeest, and 5 species of butterflies in the walkthrough exhibit. So technically, this pack actually comes with 12 animals if you count each species individually. As this is an animal pack, it doesn't come with any new scenery except for the classic signs and an armadillo statue. This pack is a bit of a weird one honestly when considering it doesn't really include any major icons like other packs. Other packs, you have your big classic icons that headline each pack, like the meerkat, beaver, capybara, moose, etc. Meanwhile, this one doesn't really have a lot of those easily recognizable animals, except for maybe the emu, and I guess the armadillo too. So then, if this pack doesn't have a lot of big ticket animals, why is it my favorite? Why should you get it? Well, maybe it doesn't have a lot of classic animals, but it does have animals from a lot of continents, and these animals are very nice filler animals. South America is one of the most underrepresented continents in the game in general, and seeing how the console community specifically doesn't even have the South America pack yet, I can't imagine trying to build any type of South American section. This pack adds 2 more South American animals, the armadillo and the maned wolf, and while these may not be the most well-known species, they do add more variety to the South American animals in the game. Alongside that, the pack also adds 2 more well-known species, the emu and the wallaby, to Australia, another continent that has next to nothing of representation in the console version of the game, seeing how they don't have either the Oceania pack or the Australia pack. 3 of the species, caracal, wildebeest, and hyena, are yes, more African species, but they do add more diversity to the African roster. Plus, the wildebeest and hyena are very big upgrades from their originals, the black wildebeest and the spotted hyena, in the base game. Overall, it depends what specific animals from what specific places you want, but if you're just looking for more animals in general, maybe spread out in different areas of the world, then I recommend this pack. It is super useful for just expanding the number of animals for certain continents, and it's probably one of the most diverse packs. So there you have it. Those are my reviews of both the Africa and Grasslands packs. Let me know down below if you're a console player and planning to get these packs or either of them, or let me know your own opinions on the packs if you're a PC player and already have them. I hope you all have enjoyed this video or found it helpful. If you did, consider joining the channel by subscribing. It's free and it helps me out a lot and helps our channel out a lot and grow. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.